My son is in the emergency room, I texted. We are busy with Claire, my mom said. Then she insulted my son, so I canceled their mortgage payments, their car loan, and every one of their credit cards. I stood in the corridor of the house where I grew up, my eyes scanning the framed pictures covering the wall. My sister's graduation, her wedding day, the birth of her first child, in every photograph, my parents beamed with pride. Any trace of my own accomplishments was noticeably absent. A familiar tightness formed in my stomach. After 35 years, you'd think I wouldn't feel it anymore. From the kitchen, my mother's voice drifted toward me. Emily, is that you? Come give me a hand with these dishes. I paused. I hadn't come here to do dishes. I had come to establish boundaries. Stepping into the kitchen, I found my mother hurriedly arranging a platter of appetizers. Claire's celebration, of course. My sister had just been promoted to department manager at a local bank, a position she secured through my father's connections. Can you finish these while I go get ready? She didn't wait for my reply, already wiping her hands on a towel. Your father picked up the wrong crackers. Claire prefers sesame, not plain. I simply nodded and took her spot at the counter. Same story, different occasion. My phone buzzed. A message from Lily, my former sister-in-law. Did you tell them yet? I hadn't. How do you break the news to your parents that you're cutting them off financially after years of supporting them? How do you explain that their only grandson recently completed a family tree assignment and didn't include them? The front door slammed shut, and heavy footsteps approached. Emily, my father acknowledged, barely glancing my way. Where's your mother? Claire will be here in an hour. My chest tightened. She's getting ready. He nodded once before disappearing into the living room without another word. I quietly arranged the crackers, recalling the countless times I had stood in this very kitchen, yearning for approval that never came. My full scholarship to UCLA, my promotion to senior analyst, the birth of my son, Jack. Nothing had ever been enough to shift their attention from Claire. She had always been their miracle child, the one they had after years of devastating miscarriages, the daughter they had long given up hope on. I was just the trial run, the practice attempt. I had spent my entire life trying to earn what she had effortlessly received, their admiration, their attention, their pride. When Justin walked out on me for a co-worker 3 years ago, I assumed my parents would finally step up. Their daughter suddenly a single mother, surely needing support. Instead, they questioned if I had been the reason for the marriage's failure. Had I focused too much on my career? Had I neglected my responsibilities as a wife? It wasn't them who offered a helping hand. It was Justin's parents, Tom and Rachel. No longer my in-laws, but still my real family. They stepped in. They picked Jack up from school, kept him on weekends when my job required me to travel, showered him with love and attention. Meanwhile, my own parents had been too preoccupied, until 6 months ago. The sudden shift caught me off guard. Suddenly, they called every week to ask about Jack, invited us over for Sunday dinners, offered to babysit. I wanted to believe it meant something. Maybe they had finally realized what they had missed all these years. Maybe they had finally decided to be present as grandparents. Then Claire's promotion happened, and suddenly, everything became clear. They hadn't changed. They just needed money. My mother returned to the kitchen, now wearing a new blouse, one that I had paid for. Did you finish the appetizers? Claire will be here any minute. I inclined my head and slid the tray in her direction. We need to discuss something. Her face shifted instantly, enthusiasm fading into apprehension. About what? Can this wait until after the event? It could, but it wouldn't. I'm stopping all financial contributions, I stated, my voice steadier than I expected. Her face lost all color. What financial contributions? She asked, as if she had no idea, as if I hadn't been covering their vehicle loan for half a decade, as if I hadn't taken care of the cost of the roof replacement last summer, the property levies, the vacation to Hawaii, every single one of them. My hands trembled slightly, but I pressed them firmly against the counter. The car loan, the credit accounts, the home insurance, everything. She gawked at me, her mouth opening and closing, searching for words. Why would you do this after all we've done for you? A sharp, humorless chuckle escaped before I could hold it back. Oh, and what exactly have you done for me? We raised you. We made sure you had food to eat. She was attempting to take credit for fulfilling basic parental duties. When Justin left, who actually supported me? When Jack was sick and needed to get to his follow-up appointments, who stepped in when I was promoted? Who even acknowledged it? Not you. Never you. My father stepped into the doorway, his brow furrowing. What's going on here? My mother turned toward him, her voice rising in indignation. Emily says she's cutting us off financially after everything we've done for her. His face darkened. Is this about that situation we already explained? It's about everything, the words poured out. Years of disappointment, neglect, and realization, bursting free. It's about Jack calling Rachel grandma because she actually treats him like one. It's about you two skipping his birthday to go on Claire's vacation home trip. It's about me needing emergency surgery and you refusing to pick up your own grandson because Claire had a dinner 3 weeks ago. Appendicitis. I had been rushed to the emergency room, barely conscious from the pain. My only coherent thought was Jack, alone at after-school care, waiting for someone to pick him up. My parents had been my first call, of course they had. We're at Claire's promotion dinner, my mother had said, annoyance dripping from her tone. Can't his father get him? Justin was in Seattle with his new wife. I had barely managed to explain through the haze of pain. Well, we can't leave now. Claire would be devastated. Then the final blow. He's just so much work sometimes, a burden. My child, their grandson, an inconvenience. Rachel, however, had answered immediately. She had dropped everything. She not only picked up Jack, but stayed by my side in the hospital overnight, rearranging waiting room chairs to form a makeshift bed where he could sleep. That was the moment I understood the distinction between obligation and love, between blood and true family. My father's voice yanked me back to the present. You're overreacting. We couldn't leave Claire's dinner. You know how much it meant to her. More important than their grandson left alone and frightened. More important than their daughter rushed into surgery. I'm done, I said, my voice quiet but unwavering. No more financial support. No more pretending. You don't get to use me when it benefits you and discard me when it doesn't. My mother's face crumpled, not with remorse but with calculation. The car payment is due in a few days and your father's medication. Claire's new salary could cover it, or they could finally dip into the retirement savings they had been hoarding while I had been financing their lifestyle. Not my responsibility anymore. The front door swung open, and Claire's cheerful voice rang out. Mom, Dad, I brought champagne. That was my cue to leave. I grabbed my purse off the counter. Emily, wait! My mother's voice rose in desperation. You can't do this to us. But I could, and I was. I walked past Claire in the hallway, catching the flicker of confusion on her face. Emily, I didn't know you were coming to my celebration. I wasn't, I said quietly, my voice barely holding. I had only come to withdraw my final emotional investment, the last traces of care for people who had never truly seen me. Congratulations on the promotion, I said, sincerity in my tone. Claire's achievements had never been the issue. The true problem had always been our parents' inability to acknowledge both of their daughters. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her expression. Appreciate it. Are you heading out already? I gave a brief nod, unwilling to rely on my voice any further. Let them provide explanations. Let them face the aftermath of their own choices. The journey home felt surreal, like drifting through a haze. Tears welled up, but they weren't from sorrow. They were from relief. The weight I had carried for years, constantly striving to obtain love that should have been unconditional, had finally been lifted. Jack was at Rachel's house. My former mother-in-law had sent over pictures of him covered in baking flour, pure joy reflected in his eyes, happiness in every frame, love, real and unfiltered. Family isn't about duty. It's not about shared blood. It's about the ones who stay, the ones who make you feel accepted exactly as you are. 3 months slipped by. No phone calls, no manipulative messages. Absolute silence. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, my phone screen lit up with my mother's name. My finger hovered over the decline button, but curiosity won. I picked up. Emily, she addressed me in a stiff tone, each word carefully chosen. We need to talk about this situation. The situation, meaning their financial struggles without my assistance. There's nothing left to discuss. A beat of silence. Then her voice laced with resentment. Claire refuses to help us. Says we need to learn how to handle our own expenses. The bitterness in her tone was impossible to miss. The car got taken away yesterday. The mortgage is overdue by 2 months. Not my concern, not anymore. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, and a small part of me truly was. The part conditioned to believe their comfort, their well-being, was my responsibility. You can't just leave us like this. We're your parents. Biological connection, not emotional support, I replied, quietly ending the call. I blocked the number. Across the kitchen, Jack was intently focused on his school project, a family tree. How's it going, kiddo? I asked, leaning in. At the top, he had drawn Rachel and Tom labeled Grandma and Grandpa. Below them, Mom and Dad were written under my name and Justin's. At the bottom, himself. No Claire, no maternal grandparents. Is this everyone in our family? I asked carefully. He nodded with certainty. These are the ones who love us. Simple, profound, true. That night, after Jack had drifted to sleep, I sat on the back porch with a glass of wine. A cool breeze brushed against my skin as I contemplated inheritance. Not wealth, not property. The emotional inheritance passed down through generations. The beliefs instilled in us about love, about worth, about relationships. My parents had inherited their own wounds. Their own flawed idea that love was something earned, that children were indebted to their parents rather than cherished by them. But cycles don't have to repeat. Patterns can be rewritten. Jack would inherit something different from me, the unshakable truth that love isn't a transaction, that family is chosen, that the most important thing is simply being there. My phone vibrated with a message from Rachel. Tom's making his famous chili this Sunday. You and Jack coming? A smile touched my lips as I typed back. Wouldn't miss it. This was my legacy now. Not guilt, not obligation, but choice, connection. Love given freely, received wholeheartedly. For the very first time in my existence, I felt truly abundant in what held real significance. Gazing back, I could now discern the pattern with absolute clarity. The relentless pursuit, the continuous struggle, the desperate longing to be acknowledged. My sense of worth had always been measured through their validation, or rather the absence of it. Every milestone had been a silent plea. Notice me, care about me, acknowledge me. The walls of my childhood room had once been adorned with academic certificates, spelling bee awards, and math competition trophies, all accumulating dust while my parents enthusiastically attended Claire's soccer matches, her dance performances, and her unremarkable school ceremonies. When I was accepted into UCLA with a full scholarship, my father had merely scowled at the letter of admission. California? That's too far away. And who is supposed to assist your mother with the household? Not Claire. Never Claire. She was too absorbed in being the focal point of their universe. I left anyway. I worked my way through graduate school, established a career in finance, and reached a point where I no longer needed assistance from anyone. Then I met Justin, charismatic, confident Justin, with his warm gaze and an uncanny ability to make me feel like the most significant person in any setting. His family welcomed me instantly. Holiday gatherings where my thoughts mattered, weekend cookouts where my words were heard. His mother, Rachel, called simply to check in. His father, Tom, showed me how to change the oil in my car. It was unfamiliar, this effortless acceptance, this sincere interest in me. When we tied the knot, my parents found reasons to complain about everything: the venue, the date, the menu. Claire, who stood beside me as my maid of honor, had looked completely uninterested throughout the ceremony. My parents left early, citing Claire's early morning appointment the following day. Justin's parents, they remained until the very end, helped with the cleanup, and embraced me as though I had always belonged to their family. Jack's arrival should have changed everything. He was their first grandchild, but they visited once, briefly staying less than an hour. My mother had held him awkwardly before quickly handing him back. "He resembles Justin," she had remarked, as though that somehow justified her emotional distance. Rachel and Tom, however, had been different. They brought home-cooked meals, volunteered to stay overnight during those exhausting first few weeks, and held Jack for hours just so I could rest, shower, and feel human again. Then Justin walked away. A text message. Not even the decency of a face-to-face conversation. It was Rachel who discovered me curled up on the bathroom floor, sobbing. Rachel who packed an overnight bag for Jack. Rachel who took us both into her home while I attempted to process the wreckage of my marriage. My parents' response. A single phone call. My mother's tone had carried something disturbingly close to satisfaction. "Men don't appreciate women who prioritize their careers. I warned you." As if my ambition had been the problem. As if I had somehow deserved to be left behind. The divorce was brutal. Justin battled for financial assets but had no interest in custody. He craved freedom without responsibility. Rachel and Tom were caught in the middle, torn between their love for their son and their disappointment in his choices. "You're still family," Tom had reassured me with unwavering certainty. "That doesn't change. Jack is our grandson. You're his mother. The equation is simple. Simple for them, simple for me. But not for my own parents, who still viewed me as a tool for managing their obligations." The moment Jack turned 5, I received a text from my mother asking about college savings plans. She seemed more interested in my son's future than I had ever been in mine. It was clear now. The only reason they ever paid attention was when I could offer something useful. When I no longer had anything to provide, I simply ceased to matter. That was when I made the decision. The boundaries were set. The contributions were over. And with every passing day,